Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Irreplaceable Truths. I'm Dr. G, retired veterinarian. I'm out here trying to help all those new into the profession try to realize how wonderful the profession really is. Today, we're going to take a different spin. I have a very good friend of mine. Her name is Carrie Richards. She doesn't practice law by the last name of Richards, but I know her as a Richards. And we're going to deep dive, and I want to be able to compare what it's like to be a very, very successful, powerful attorney, along with being a very successful, powerful veterinarian. Stay tuned. Hello, everybody. So, Carrie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, so a little bit about Carrie. How do I know Carrie? Well, Carrie, basically, I met through elementary school with my kids. Her husband taught all three of my children. All three. And the cool thing about Carrie is that she practices health law. She works at a hospital. She did her undergrad at the University of Chicago, so that's no easy feat. She did law school at LMU here in LA. And I'm going to let her tell us a little more about her bio. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me. This will be so fun. You got the path right. I went to U of C and braved the freezing weather for a great academic experience, then came back to California for law school. And I did work when I was in law school, which was always interesting, and actually jumped into the evening classes the second year because I felt like the students were a little more serious then, which is one of the things I really contributed to kind of my law school career, allowing me to work and be in school. And then I graduated and then decided to get an LLM in health law, which is like 1 year solely focused on health law, which was really an incredible experience, and then kind of launched me into the big firm life, which is, I don't know if it's the same as sort of the intensity of a residency, but it felt like it. And I was there for 2 years before I decided that big law life was not for me and started my in-house career at that point.
What's so funny about our professions is that people absolutely freaking hate lawyers and people love veterinarians.
I know.
So with that stigma, how do you as a professional handle the emotional demands of being a lawyer?
One problem at a time, because you can get overwhelmed, especially if you have intense clients. I mean, that is the one awesome part of your job is I know you have the parents, but you have the animals, which I feel like similar to babies, that dogs, cats are like the great equalizers of life. They calm everybody down. In the legal profession, there's no third-party beneficiary of our services that brings about that sort of calm to the dynamic. So you really have to rely on your own people skills to deflate difficult situations because they happen pretty much daily, especially when you're starting out. There is high demand, crazy timelines when you have to finish and address problems, and usually with difficult customers or clients.
So if you had a young, early career professional attorney come to you and say, work-life balance is very important to me, what would you say about the law profession to them?
Well, it's interesting because over the course of my career, it's changed dramatically. When I was in the law firm, big law life, you basically lose your life, right? I was getting up at 5 a.m. I was at the office till 11 p.m. working deals. I mean, just really an intense time commitment and intellectual commitment. I think now, at that point, everyone's like, oh, go in-house, go in-house. It's easier, it's less hours, less demanding. Now it feels like the pendulum has shifted a little bit, where in-house feels like it's even more demanding than law firm life, which is, choosing where you're going to practice law will impact the work-life balance that you're able to achieve. So that's one factor in that selection process that they need to think about is which environment you're going to choose.
And that's what I always try to tell young veterinarians as well. You need to choose practices where you have psychological safety, you have good mentorship, you have just a solid team that you can depend on. Is it the same thing when you're looking at a law practice?
Definitely. And even when you're looking at companies. So a lot of my colleagues and peers are in-house counsel at big firms. Big companies. And when people come to me and say, I want to change jobs, I want to get a different job, one of the things we recommend they look at is the people, leadership development, professional development. Are they growing their people into being bigger and better, or are they just churning you and just want you to work? And there are really important questions to ask in the interview process, doing your own research with people that work there to find out, what that culture looks like. Does it allow for psychological safety? Do they just work you to death, wait till you burn out and leave? Because there are definitely environments that cater to that.
Well, and it's so funny you brought up burnout because, through my research path and my dissertation that I'm working on, there are so many articles that talk about lawyer burnout along with veterinary burnout, along with nurse burnout. Those are like the top three. How many of these attorneys do you think burned out well before they even started the profession?
Unfortunately, too many. And I have a dear friend of mine who, top of the class, I think she had a scholarship to undergrad and law school and went to a big law firm. And within, I want to say it's like 9-10 months, even after she had a federal clerkship, which is like impossible to get, she was done. She left the profession because it was horrible. They did not treat people with respect. They were just burning people out. And she's gone on and done amazing things with her life. She's truly blessed the world in a different way, but she was a badass lawyer, super smart. She got me through my classes. She was brilliant, and it was just unfortunate that the environment crushed her and she had to leave.
Do you think a lot of these attorneys are having issues with the profession because I don't really, talking to friends of mine whose kids went to law school and now they hate lawyering. Is it because they just didn't get a good preview of what the job really was? Were they going off of TV shows and movies more than going and spending some time in a law office before they went?
That's definitely possible. People do come in eyes wide.
Did you?
I had exposure. I knew the rigors of what the job would look like. My dad was an attorney. He practiced in the divorce realm. I knew I did not want to do that, but I had a feeling of the intellectual stamina, the long hours, all of that was familiar to me. I do think, what they're seeing on TV shows or the 2-hour lunches or all of that, that is alluring of years, so many years past. That's not available. That's not what it looks like anymore. And I also think, the work ethic piece, people don't, being a lawyer, it's a lot of hard work. And to do it really well takes a lot of extra, you have to love learning. And so if people come out of law school thinking, I know this skill, I know how to do it, it's actually more work after law school to be a lawyer, which not everyone's prepared for.
Yeah, we have the national board exam, you have the bar exam, and then you also have to take a bar exam for every state you want to practice law in as well?
Well, California doesn't really do any reciprocity, so if you leave California, if you come in from other states to California, then you're going to have to take the California bar. But a lot of states don't allow that reciprocity. So yeah, I've had friends 20 years in go take the bar somewhere else, which is crazy.
Well, the good news is that, well, no, that isn't good news, because if you've been out for 20 years and you've been specializing in health law,
Right.
and you take a bar exam and there's all these questions on
property.
Tort.
Yeah, totally tort. It's. I mean, it depends. Like some of my friends that have done it have loved it because they love learning and they loved kind of reflecting back on that information. So it's really a mindset, I think, that determines if you're happy as a lawyer or not. It's critical to really, you have to have the ultimate growth mindset. And if you thought, I know this knowledge and I don't have to learn anything else and I can kind of rubber stamp things, this is probably not the path for you.
How many attorneys do you think were going through that turbulent ride of law school and then their first job was just a rough landing and they're like, I'm done, or even their second job was even rougher? They're like, I'm done. How many attorneys truly come out of law school and have that smooth landing in that first job?
I mean, probably zero. I mean, it's not designed for that. And I think how they determine if you have what it takes is if you stay in it. And maybe it's a sign that you're really good at dysfunctional relationships and dynamics. That's what you're achieving. But most of it doesn't go that smoothly. I mean, there's always those partners. I feel like they plant them, in every firm that are just going to make your life as miserable as possible and see if you have what it takes to overcome it.
Yeah, I always thought if I was an attorney, I'd be Harvey Specter. But that's just me. I have that type of ego, I guess. But when you got out of law school and got into your first law firm, was there some great mentoring available for you, or did you have to learn your way on your own?
I was really lucky because they had just, I think, implemented both a mentor and an advisor program. So I had, and I think it was a joke because I think I stayed the longest of any mentee of this one particular attorney. And it was only 2 years because it's a really rigorous environment. So they did try to provide that support, which I think it did help. I mean, I also have my own ego, and when I saw that there were some parts of being in a big firm I didn't like, I actually wrote a list of things that they would need to change for me to stay at the firm, and they were basically things that are the reason firms are revenue generating. So that's when I sort of knew, and that's what I think is important for new lawyers to recognize, is there's not just one place to practice law. There's other places that might be a better fit for your personality and the way you like to do your job.
And you can have a law degree and not practice law and still be extremely successful using your law degree.
Probably more successful. I mean, I have to be honest about this. Like a lot, not a lot. I do a lot in private equity-backed healthcare. And we will come across people that have gone to law school, so they have a lot of the knowledge, the working knowledge, but they've gone on the entrepreneur route and they're crushing it. And, we're doing their paperwork essentially and helping do their transactions.
Build their LLCs.
Yes, we're doing all the things, but they're the people with the ideas and they know the framework. And I think I loved law school. I think it's a great education, even if you're choosing not to be a lawyer. And I would love to go head to head with someone on whether it's better to get an MBA or a law degree, even if you're going into business. Because I do think that the law degree serves you probably better than an MBA.
Well, the one thing about my MBA that I loved at Pepperdine was they put so much emphasis on business law.
That's great.
There was a business law class, in organizational management. There was a whole section on business law. I mean, and obviously if you're going to get into business, you got to know the HR rules, even though they change
every
weekly?
5 minutes. Yeah, true.
Yeah. So, and what I love about this conversation so far is that I hope the listeners are hearing that the similarities between the two professions are almost identical.
Yeah. I think the characteristics of the people doing these jobs in some ways are also like the perfectionism, the intellectual.
Oh, I'm glad you brought up perfectionism. How many attorneys think that just like vet school, right? You got to be perfect to get into undergrad. You got to be perfect to get into law school. Well, there are so many law schools out there that you could do. You can get a debunked type degree if you're not really that perfect. But to get a reputable school, you got to be perfect. Do a lot of lawyers graduate thinking that, oh my goodness, I want to be perfect day one?
It's a struggle. Like the number one anxiety that I work with new lawyers, like sort of in a mentorship capacity, the number one thing that we work through is the anxiety of how to answer questions that you don't know the answer to. And it baffles me because I don't remember that, but I'm sure I went through that. But they want to know right away, and it takes 20 years to know how to answer the question correctly, and giving themselves the grace to just say, hey, you know what, I'll look that up, give me a second. But the fear of that answer is something that we have to work through.
Well, there is a time somewhere in your career, you're maturing, you're building your professional identity, that conscious decision making becomes subconscious decision making. And when that clicks, it's great. Now, for some people, it could be 2-3 years. For some people, it could be 15 years. And for those who are miserable, it never happens. And I think I'm wondering sometimes if just these people being so distraught with making the wrong decision about their career, if that really keeps them from truly blossoming and getting that professional identity and getting that confidence.
And enjoying it. Like, I mean, that's one of the struggles, I think, that, you can grind at a job, like, especially as an attorney, like, you can grind, you can learn as much, but if you are hating it, you're not going to produce good work. Like, there is just part of it that you have to navigate in a way that you can enjoy it, because you'll do better work because of that.
So what would you tell me if I was a young attorney and I came to you and I'm like, Carrie, I hate my fucking job.
Mm-hmm.
I hate this profession. What steps would you tell me to go through in order to find that love?
Well, I think it starts with finding your purpose and passion. Like, what do you actually care about? Because a lot of times lawyers get stuck in business or, property or real estate or whatever, and they don't care about it. Like, I care deeply about the area of law within which I practice. I love healthcare. It makes a difference. I can pull it down to a patient level. It means something to me. I'm excited to work in this space. And when I worked at City of Hope, they have on the sign of the doors to City of Hope, it says, there's no profit in curing the body if in the process we destroy the soul. And that statement resonated so strongly for me that it helped sustain me even during difficult projects, times, experiences. So I'd say to that person, find something in the law that you care about. Like I've had people say, well, I love REI. Well, let's try to get a job there or something in that space. Like, there's so many opportunities to take your legal career and apply it to something that matters to you. And that is as important as finding the right people to work with.
Yeah, it's all about finding your why, right?
Totally.
As Simon
Yes,
Sinek.
yes.
And if you haven't seen that TED Talk by Simon Sinek, you got to watch it. Finding what is your why. If you find out what your why is, I don't care what profession you're in, you are going to be successful.
Absolutely.
And that success hopefully is monetary, but it's more of your soul.
Yeah, and the money will come. I feel like that you can find a way on if obviously we all need to make a living, but there's doing it out of love, passion, your why. It turns it into a joyful experience. So the burdens of being a lawyer, there's a long list of what's hard about this job, the things we have to do in order to support the missions that matter to us. But it makes it easier.
Did they prepare you in law school for all this bullshit you're talking about?
No. It's all self-experienced. I wouldn't even say self-taught. But the thing is, I had a keen eye on people that enjoyed being lawyers. And I'd watch them. And I'd sort of study what their path was. How did they get to being so high up? I mean, I'm talking like the GCs, the head of risk management. These people were just ultimate badasses. But they had joy. They had a success that was bigger than just money.
What type of help could you give, whether it be an early lawyer or early veterinarian? What advice can you give them to seek out those people that still love the profession? Because at least on my end, on the veterinary side, I think a lot of people surround themselves with people who cannot stand the profession anymore. And here I'm standing here and I'm still surrounding myself on this podcast, even in my retirement career, with people who still are huge cheerleaders.
Yeah. You need those.
How do you find them?
Oh my gosh. I mean, they're not hard to find once you're open to it. And that is some of it comes with just being vulnerable, right? Like vulnerability has brought me the most incredible cheerleaders. Just saying,
let down the wall.
Let it go.
Let your wall down. Put your wall down.
This is so hard. And being honest and open about it. And then you get this whole supportive component where, like, when things are really hard, you need those people more than anything. But they're out there, and it's just a matter of you stop pretending you don't need them is part of it.
So for the listeners, just so you know, Carrie's also authoring a book. She's a mom. She's a wonderful wife. She's a CEO, and she also is a partner in our law firm, which is, you talking about badass. It's crazy. I want to hit on a little bit of the mental health side because veterinary medicine has a horrible trend it's going through right now. Phenomena, they say it's a phenomena, but phenomena usually go away. But phenomena are unexplainable. Mental health in the veterinary side is horrendous. How is it in the law firm?
You know, it's probably has very similar components and probably similar statistics. I mean, I don't know them off the top of my head, but I think the type of environment and expectation is similar, like the mental and emotional exhaustion of the job. And I think that it's even maybe easier to isolate as a lawyer than as a vet, possibly, because you can really go into a hole and still be getting work done and being depressed and miserable, and no one will notice as long as you're billing hours. You know, there's not the same level of connection that I feel like you experience in a veterinary office or environment. So I feel like there's high risk of the isolation part really coming in, and I have definitely, held up some lawyers struggling who have left because it was too hard and too much.
When you start to isolate yourself, that's where you really start the burnout phase, right? Because you're already emotionally exhausted.
Yeah.
You're exhausted.
You walk around that way.
Right? And
Yeah.
also if you don't think you're good enough, right? Especially as these firms or these veterinary practices can beat you down. Clients can beat you down.
Yeah.
Everyone can beat you down. That's where you got to be careful of burnout. What do you think the long-term prognosis is or effects of either of our professions on our psyche?
I worry that no one's going to want to do this job. I mean, on the psyche part, they're just going to leave, right? They're going to find you can't sustain this unless there's a severe mental health crisis that you're just going to face, endure, and live with. But it is that breaking point, that's what I worry about the most, is when there is a point when they're choosing the dark side, essentially, versus seeking out help to cross over or to, how can I make this better, and not having resources to know. And I don't really know.
Is the self-soothing or the dark side like medical soothing, like looking into alcohol, looking into drugs, looking into other stuff?
Oh my God. I mean, I do know, like, alcoholism and drug abuse in the legal field is rampant. Like, I mean, two things. I think there's they have the money to spend on it, and because they're working so hard that they have liquid cash, but they are working so hard they have no life. That's the other part of this, is that the hours are so demanding. A lot of people lose their families, right? Because who wants to put up with that? I mean, it's not a very fun person to hang out with. They're miserable all day at work, barely come home, and then they're kind of a jackass because they hate their job so much. That's not a great time. So they're isolated on so many levels, not just at work, but in their family life.
And it depends on what study you read, but veterinary medicine's in the 80 percentile is women.
Oh, interesting.
Which it is what it is amazing. Like I love seeing kick-ass women,
Yeah.
powerful women, alpha dominant women.
That is so high. We're like at 50, I think.
So that's why another reason I wanted to bring you on here. How how do you balance being a professional, a wife, and a mom?
I probably don't balance it that well, but kind of trending towards prioritizing kind of who needs you the most at that time is sort of the way that I navigate my days. Really, it's a day hourly. I mean, like mapping it out and really um, having intentionality about prioritizing the things that are the most important. And for me, right now in my life, it's being a great mom, being the best wife that I can be. As my brother's like, "You're a great mom. You're like an okay wife," but I'm working on that.
Wife in training.
Yeah, wife in training. I honestly, I always can acquire new skills, and then really just creating a law firm that supports people that do have families. Like that is, my other mission every day. And balancing that's not always perfect because you don't know who's going to need you for what. And I think flexibility and always having an understanding families and coworkers to know that I'm trying to be everything I can be for everyone that needs me.
Okay. Well, that could be a 24/7 job. How does Carrie get a break?
That's another thing that I would say is a work in progress, but I do try to find moments on a daily basis where that happens. I mean, sometimes it's a very simple, a latte or a quiet moment, but I'm in the thick of it, right? This is when you look at parenting in particular, it kind of goes by quickly, is what I understand. And I do feel like I have breakfast every 15 minutes. Like it's just keep going and keep going. And I want to be fully present and enjoy it. So maybe I have a little FOMO and I do like to be engaged at the right moments, but I also can call it quits and say I'm exhausted and I'm taking a minute.
Do you think it's attainable to be the perfect mom, the perfect wife, and the perfect professional?
No. I mean, it's for me it's not perfection, even though I think that that's kind of an innate quality of a lot of people, probably in the vet space as well as in the legal field. I'm trying to be value centric every day. So my 3 values are joy, impact, and growth. And so making decisions around those 3 things, it can eliminate a lot of the white noise and kind of the BS. Like even as something as simple as, a mom's night out. Well, that's not really falling in, depending on who the moms are, right? If that's not going to bring me joy, I'm not going to do it just because it's like an obligatory thing.
When balancing out everything in your life, what's the one thing that brings you joy? What's the one thing you wake up and say, I'm going to cause this impact? And how do you plan on growing every day?
I mean, the joy definitely comes from being a mom. That, sometimes it's, delayed gratification joy, but I do find a lot of fulfillment in my kids and being with them and just seeing the world through their eyes. Impact really flows, both modeling good and healthy behavior for my kids and also encouraging my colleagues at our firm to be present to their families and to be taking care of themselves as well. Like that's probably the most important impact that I think I can have today because it affects 10 other families that are very similarly situated to me. Where we have parents that are just trying to be amazing lawyers, but really prioritizing parenting first. So that's really where my biggest impact flows.
Is that possible? Is that possible to be amazing lawyers and being amazing parents at the same time?
They're doing it. I'm so proud of the people that I get to work with and I get to witness. They're just able to serve their families and serve our clients in the most incredible way.
But do you see them going through emotional roller coasters all the time? Or are they able to have the emotional intelligence to keep that all in check?
They're definitely emotionally intelligent. I think we're also open as far as your psychological safety part where we can share when it's not going so well and giving each other the grace. Like shifting assignments around. So-and-so's kid's not feeling great. This person's been up all night. So it's a lot of flexibility that creates an environment that supports people who are parenting. So it's a different kind of work and calling, but it's worth it, because in 10 years when all of our kids are in college we'll look back as working parents, I think, with a lot less guilt and more joy because we made this work. So that is like a huge part of my impact.
Yeah, I ask my wife all the time about the impact that she's had in her kid's life. And she's like, it's so funny because she just says, I just hope my kids realize how fucking hard I worked. I worked my ass off for them.
I know.
And the one thing I'm realizing is she's absolutely correct, because I look at my older daughter, got out of school, full-time job, got her master's. Yeah. Middle daughter, while at Arizona State, still wants a job, still wants to work, still wants to make a difference. Now, the third one, that's a work in progress still, but usually we don't see that until once they get out of the house.
But it's truly like such a testament to their witnessing and seeing, like, we're modeling behavior at the end of the day. That is what parenting is, and making sure that they are seeing who you are. It doesn't mean they have to become you, but I think there's a natural tendency, especially I do feel like from the work ethic perspective, growing up with parents that work so hard is going to serve them.
When you think about it, if a child, one of your children came up to you and said, hey, Mom, I want to be a lawyer, what would you say?
So my daughter said that the other day, that she wants to be an animal rights lawyer because she loves animals.
There's no money in animal rights.
And that's the thing. She'll make money in animal rights. But that's my point, because she's an entrepreneur, but she's very passionate. And I said, I love my job because I get to help people every day. And however you want to help people every day, you're going to find fulfillment in it. So I think I loved the education, and I've loved, especially as a business owner, creating a law firm culture consistent with values has been probably my life's greatest work.
And that's what I loved about being a veterinarian, is that you were a doctor, you're a manager, but most importantly, you could be an entrepreneur. And as an entrepreneur, owning your own practice, you could create your own culture. You could create a vibe. You could create what you envisioned, and you can find people who will buy into that vision and make your life even that much better.
Yes.
And it sounds like that's what you did.
That is the path. I mean, that is the path. And that's the thing, is don't give up, because this exists. And when I describe our firm to people, they think it's a joke. Like, that can't exist, because most women lawyers don't even bathe their children. They get up in the morning, they maybe kiss them goodbye, send them off to preschool. They work all day. By the time they get home, they're bathed and in bed. Maybe they get a good night story, that's it. Like, that is one way to do it, but I wonder if this was a possibility for them if they would choose something different, because it's so fulfilling. It really is.
In your profession, how do you deal with clients that have these unrealistic expectations? Because, I mean, we have that in our profession. Granted, we want all these animals to live forever, and they don't. Mm-hmm. But we have unrealistic expectations from a lot of clients that believe that these animals should live forever. Mm-hmm. And what do you mean my dog has cancer? He's only 7 or 8, and it's like, it happens. And then, of course, they turn around and decide to write this horrible review online and try to destroy you.
Yeah.
What are your tricks that you tell lawyers how to deal with those unrealistic clients? Other than fire them, because that's the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, which, honestly, like most of those situations in my own experience, I was like the employee, or, I was the underling associate. I like the firing idea, though. I'm not going to dismiss that, because when you get more seasoned in your career, like, being in a place where you can say, actually, I don't work with people like that.
Well, once you have your base and you have your clientele and you're good.
It's a goal.
Yeah, get rid of them.
Right.
Red flag,
right.
Boom, bye.
So before that, I think it's knowing yourself and what you'll tolerate, and having a diplomatic way to level set. I wasn't always diplomatic. I mean, you know me well enough. And I did get scolded maybe now and again for being a little bit irreverent in the face of unreasonable expectations, mostly from like internal clients. But sometimes people just need to be schooled a little bit about human behavior, because there is an epidemic of people that are not very nice to other people, and
People
okay.
are assholes.
They're assholes.
They're
okay.
assholes right now.
I can't, and I won't. I won't tolerate that. And so, but that's coming from someone that's a little more seasoned in her career. So I'm not saying out of the gate, but I will. One of my favorite moments. There was a really like codger lawyer who had brick. Everyone had carpeted offices except for this attorney had brick. And the rumor was it's because he throws the heads of first-year associates who didn't do work properly onto this. And so I had an assignment with this guy, and he was brutal. I mean, just degrading, rude. That finally I wrote him my memo in crayon because he told me I needed to dumb it down a little bit. And that did not go over well, but he learned a lesson, and so did I. But you have to also be creative in... and not irreverent, but in like schooling people. Like I'm not going to tolerate certain things, and I.
Oh, hold on. You wrote a note or a legal?
A legal memo.
But you can't write it in crayon. That's illegal.
No.
You got to use black pen.
No, it was a typed memo for him, but I was like, "You want to mess with me?" It's the fourth time I'd written it, but I just think you have to stand up for yourself at any stage of the game, and honestly, like to your psychological safety point, if you're in an environment when that is not received properly, I don't think you have to tolerate it anymore. I think that there's avenues to change jobs, find a better situation, or find an advocate within your organization to help iron that person out, because most people know who the asshole is in the office. Like they just do.
So how do you balance professionalism with empathy?
Well, it's hard, especially in healthcare, because there's always a patient at the end of the rainbow, like the person that we're trying to help and serve. And when you get into dynamics where there are professional pieces that are interfering or affecting how the patient's cared for, it's very hard. I'm relatively vocal about the mission.
You're not vocal. What are you talking about? You're just as quiet as I am.
I mean, I would drive into those moments. Like
Right.
I remember some situations where I will pull out the mission of the organization and just ask everybody if the proposal is consistent with the mission. And if everyone wants to agree to it, then that's the first step. And so it would just create conversation and get people to think a little harder that that's the right path. But I think you have to be creative in ensuring that empathy enters into the professional, generally revenue-focused conversations, you know.
But you and I have to agree, it's next to impossible to have empathy for someone who's being an asshole, a client that's being an asshole to you, or being rude to your assistants or to your staff, or you know, in general. I still do not have an answer for people when they ask me that question. Do you have any secret sauce to that?
I mean, I probably don't handle it in the perfect way, but I will. Like, the thing is, and that's the benefit of owning your own company, because I've exited clients that are not respectful, because that's really the only permanent solution, to show that I'm not comfortable tolerating people that treat me or our associates or anybody in that way. But you know, I did that at one point in my career, and I got calls from other people saying, "Oh my goodness, you fired so and so," and it was like a big deal. And I honestly didn't think it was that big of a deal, because it was me just protecting our people, you know.
Do you think as you matured through your profession, you started to be able to notice red flags sooner?
Yes.
What are some of the red flags you look out for in a potential client?
I think, well, my intuition is relatively accurate.
And you never, and I'm going to interject, I never, ever argued with a mother's intuition. If someone's, like a mom's ever said, there's something wrong with Fluffy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even though the dog comes in doing backflips and running and happy.
You're like, okay.
Okay, I still trust her that there's something wrong.
Yeah, there is that. And that's relatively, it's been pretty accurate. But, you know, I obviously, in our engagements, we have this opportunity to like see behaviors and how they receive guidance and how they push back on, you know, pursuing things that are not wholly legal, or, you know, all those things that you want someone that has integrity, pays on time, and is pleasant to work with. And we have a firm like people purpose message that we work with people we like, for people we like, doing meaningful work in a supportive family environment. And we tell our clients that. And when I talk to new clients, I also let them know what that actually means is that we don't work with people that are not nice.
Did you ever think of having your new clients sign a waiver that said, this is the behavior we expect out of you?
You know, we have, you know, the ability to terminate any engagement relatively quickly. So I don't think we would need like a behavior contract.
Because you need it for any youth sport. You sign out.
I know.
You got to sign a parent behavior contract.
I've seen those, yeah.
And even then, parents are still absolute jackasses on the sideline. But that's a different podcast on this platform.
Those people shouldn't be allowed to be at the field at all. You one shot, like it's not, because I've been in those environments, and I mean.
Right. So if we're giving parents one shot on the youth field, why are we giving them more than one shot in professional world?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I would say that they only get really one shot with me. Like if we see behavior that is disrespectful or unkind, they probably don't have a long-term relationship with our firm, because most of our clients we've had for 10 to 15 years, built on really good relationships. So I love new clients, but I want them to also be clients for 10 to 15 years because they're good people.
Yeah, finding great clients, and that's what I miss the most. Like I had a client reach out to me on Instagram this morning, and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy you put up this post about bee stings. Petey got, stung by a bee, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Petey's still alive,
Yeah.
It really means a lot. Are there any clients you still think about to this day that really changed your career path?
Mostly people, yeah. Clients is people that, one in particular, honestly, was a hard ass on me, and he'd be happy to be named. This guy, Bob Badal, he expected perfection, and goddamn it, I gave it to him the best I could, like flawless execution. And I do credit him with making me a better lawyer. And so not being afraid of, he at points he was rough around the edges, but never disrespectful. But, I caution people, like, don't dismiss some of those characters in the world, because he truly, like, elevated my game as far as a client, relationship. Yeah, those are the people that, pushed you and expected more from you than you thought you could give them.
You've told me that you're not a big ruminator.
I'm not.
How do you keep pushing forward by not worrying about the past?
I mean, there's so much in front of me today to do that I don't really have the luxury of contemplating, did I do this right? Did I do that right? I mean, as a lawyer, it's a kind of an interesting dynamic, because if something bubbles up later, like say there's a lawsuit or something, and our advice was part of, the direction that was taken, you have to sit back and like that's when the ruminating starts, I guess. Like, did I document everything properly? Was it clearly laid out? Like, the worry that maybe something was missed or someone has a different memory of what was shared. I mean, that's kind of a unique ruminating experience, but mostly we just keep going forward every day because there's so much to do,
Yeah. Well, Carrie, you know what's amazing? I hope the listeners, the whole point to this podcast today was for the listeners on the veterinary side to see that our problems are no different another profession. And you were basically, I hope the listeners take home that when it comes down to being a veterinarian, there are things that you said that you could totally switch lawyer out and put veterinarian in that sentence, and it would be this exact same.
Yeah.
And the good news is that I'm excited you're here on the platform, because I really want to delve into the whole concept of mental health, especially with your book that's coming out on it. And I want to thank you for being here today.
Thank you. This has been a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
I hope it helps. You're definitely not alone. There's a lot to do, but there's a lot to do well. And if you need help, there's certainly resources.
And Carrie's a perfect resource. And how can they get a hold of you if they have any questions?
I'm under Carrie Fogliani, not Richards, but I'm sure we can share any contact information. I'm happy to help if I can.
You got it. And if you have any questions, obviously for me, or you want to hear anything in particular, make sure you hit us up on our socials or info@pacificlandstudios.com. I'd be more than happy to sit down and talk to you. Thank you for listening again to another episode of Irreplaceable Truths. We'll talk to you next time.
Hey, around we go, playing that game.